How's it going, internets? I hope you're having a lovely day. It's that time again. It's time to get into some animation. It's time to get those creative sparks flying. It's time to get that imagination all revved up. It's time to get inspired. And today's inspiration comes from Chester Gould. If you're not familiar with his work, check right over here. He's the amazing creator, illustrator, cartoonist behind the phenomenal Dick Tracy cartoons. If you've never got a chance to check these out, you've probably at least seen a movie or at least heard of this stuff before. But he's phenomenal. I really love it. He's got some great line work, very reminiscent of the style kind of at the time, and really kind of in that Al Hirschfeld kind of lines that I really love. Just that strong, you get one continuous line throughout. I really love that style. And he's got great layout, great composition. I know he was really influential at the time too, because there was lots of crime that was really going on, that was really rampant throughout, and he made like kind of doing the right thing more popular at the time. And he even won awards and everything for that, for his influences in there. And I think that's great when your work is not only just, visually pleasing and interesting, but it actually has some effect on the world around you. I think that's a great thing to aspire to, is any sort of a creative, that you can have an effect on the people around you. But I really love his stuff. I love that I'm really drawn to like a cast of crazy characters in this story. Like I really liked the early Ninja Turtle stuff, because it was really like, let's just see what kind of crazy monster, creature, mutant that we can come up with to fight him against. And then Dick Tracy kind of has like, well, let's have this really wrinkly guy and we'll call him Prune Face, or this really big boss guy and we'll call him Big Boy, or a guy with a funky haircut and we'll call him Flat Top. And I just love that kind of stuff. I think it really is really fun and really creative, and such a phenomenal universe that he created. So I'll definitely link to some more stuff from Chester Gould down below, and I hope you guys take some time and check it out. This is some of his earlier work before it was officially Dick Tracy, but you can see that kind of the forming of what would eventually become Dick Tracy in this little ad that he did. But I really love his stuff, and he's just phenomenal. I really like the art style of that time. That's like early, like between 20s and 40s style of illustration and animation. I think it's just got so much life to it, where it wasn't all formulaic, like this is what's pleasing to our audience. That we're right now, you can either go kind of the Disney style of illustration, or like the anime style, and those are kind of the two popular ones right now. This is just kind of another style that, or even there's this new kind of turn to almost like a Adventure Time kind of has a following of things that kind of go in that vein of its animation as well. And there's lots of different types, and I love all of them. I just really am drawn personally towards this style. I think it's not a style that's used as much anymore, or is appreciated as much as I think it should be. So definitely check it out. I hope you guys enjoy it. He's one of person that I've always appreciated ever since I was a little kid, for sure. But yeah, I wanted to share a quote that I grabbed from something. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of interviews with him. There's a biography that I'd love to get and read through, but I was able to find this quote that I really liked, and I wanted to share it with you guys as well. So, when you combine realism with the fantastic, you've got a story every time. And I think that's kind of what we talk about a lot here, is that sense of finding the fundamentals, or what is something that everyone can connect with and understand and is universally true, and then adding that element of yourself, or of your creative mind, and infusing it with that, so you get this nice blend of something that everyone can relate to, but is something unique, and it's something special on top of that. And I think that quote really kind of personifies that. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into our animation for today. And we are going to be using the Roboter. It's a free rig you can grab over at Creative Crash. I will link it in the description below. Oh, it's kind of dark in here today. Oh well, sorry about that. Gotta get some better lighting. Hopefully when Turbo Studios really kicks off, we'll get some better lighting and some better sound. So thanks for bearing with us as we get there. And what we're going to be doing with the rest of this video, if you're not familiar, if it's your first time watching, thanks for watching. You guys are awesome. We're going to be doing 2 seconds of animation. It's 48 frames, and we'll use this rig that I've never used before, so that'll present its own problems and its own unique things for us to talk about. And also, hopefully you'll either learn something along the way or get inspired to go off and create something of your own. We'll have a little bit of kind of just over the shoulder, hang out with me while I animate, and a little bit of instruction, and just a little bit of talking about the creative process. So that being said, I will link this stuff again down in the information below, along with a link to the program we'll be using, which is Autodesk Maya, and this is the 2014 version. And I should also link the program that I use to record all this stuff in case you guys want to check that out. That's XSplit. I really appreciate that program a lot. I feel like there's a couple other alternatives like OBS and a few other ones that you can use that are like kind of built in. But XSplit, if you're an animator, is the one that I would suggest. I find that I get the best frame rate from there. I don't get as much lag while I'm using it. There is a subscription cost, so be wary of that as well. But anyways, enough talking about that. Let's go ahead and get into our animation for the day. So let's make sure first off that we save our file, which we already did, but it's always good to save multiple versions and to save often. And then let's go ahead and turn everything off except for our NURB curves, NURB surfaces, and our polygons. And let's kind of figure out what kind of a shot we want to do with this one. First off, drop the hips here a little more. And let's puff the chest out. So let's rotate it forward. And is this just the neck? Yeah, it looks like it. So this is, I guess, I was thinking there would be another chest controller in this upper section, but it doesn't look like it. So it looks like we just have the one kind of cog here. And let's go flip back here a little bit. And this one as well. And let's push it forward a little bit. And let's see if we can switch the arms over to IK instead of, or to FK instead of IK. So let's see what goes out. There we go. And zero out. I just like doing those more with a lock, unless I'm having them hold something or do a specific pose. I like to do the FK arms instead, because that way you get that movement from the body and from the torso into those arms, and it keeps it a little more accurate and keeps you a little more honest with that kind of animation there. And what should we do with those arms? Just want to kind of create an interesting pose there. Could do something right there, like maybe a folded arm lock. Could do something behind the back, kind of slipped over. Let's try that. Kind of almost like one of the Marx Brothers box, isn't that it, I believe? Let's see if we can get something like that. I think that would be interesting. Do kind of a mopey walk for this guy. Kind of a sad robot. Yeah, let's do that. Sometimes you just have to play around with the rig and see kind of the feel that you get from a rig. Unless you have like a really planned out shot or a specific shot that you want to animate, sometimes it's something that isn't really talked about a lot in 3D animation or animation in general, is that kind of improv with animation. There's just not a lot of really way to build that in. You usually have to like, plot out your shots and really do it, but I think there's a way to get that. So it's kind of one of the reasons that we do the things we do, is try and build a little bit of improv in our animation. We just kind of let ourselves go, see what comes out. Now, there's a different way to think about it. A lot of people, maybe your idea isn't as strong as if you really, planned everything out before you sat down to animate. But I also think there's a lot of fun and a lot of good things that can come out of just kind of getting in there, opening the file, and going with whatever kind of leads you there. I think there's definitely, I think that's kind of missing in 3D animation a little bit. So that's kind of one of the reasons that we're doing these videos as well. Also, because I want there to be something where you guys can watch the whole creative process kind of come to life and have some instruction along the way that maybe you wouldn't get otherwise. So I'm trying to see if we can hang those arms a little more. I don't think so. Let's rotate the hips a little bit back. Get that, what's that? Arrested Development Charlie Brown song kind of pose. If you guys aren't familiar with that, definitely see if you can look that up on YouTube. I'm sure it's out there. Just that little movie kind of a look. It'd be nice if we could tilt the shoulders. It doesn't look like we have any shoulder controllers. I think we want to pull those down a little bit more. But that's okay. Just kind of go with what we have here. Is that the best thing we could do with the arms? We could also put one arm kind of hanging on the neck. Let's try it. Let's do that too, just to mix up this posing. And let's shape those hand poses a little bit more if we can. It's always good, like I said, to try and get as much information into that first pose as you can, and then you can work on the body mechanics after that. And this is kind of a little bit of the pose to pose before we get into some straight ahead, where we just really lock in a good pose where we put a little bit of character into everything here. Shaping these hand poses as best we can here, so it really feels like it's laying on there. You can probably angle that one down a little more. Got a thumb control here. Let's see. That's the arm. Is that the thumb control? That's kind of a funky thumb. That's alright. We can keep it one of these. Looks a little more shy than I think we were going for now, but that's alright. We'll go like that. And let's go ahead. Try to get this arm down a little more. And then I think I want to switch up the leg placement. So I'll put the other foot forward and back. And let's see there. Feels a little better. I think we'll do this that kind of angle where we have a little bit of a 3/4. I feel like that works pretty well with the posing that we're going with here. It's always good to have kind of an idea of where you want to go with your camera as well as you're working into your posing, so that you can make sure that you're kind of playing towards that camera as well. Loosen up this hand as well. It's going to go out that way, and we'll bend it back in. Just give it a nice loose hand here. We're gonna do a little bit of cupping. Or splaying, whichever way you put it. Like that. This is a weird controller with this. I like it, but it's a strange controller. But I think it works well for how you want to get your hand poses. That's for sure. But it's definitely different than a lot of other rigs for how they do their hand posing. That's okay. I'm okay with different. Everybody's got stuff that's a little bit different. And let's maybe do a little bit of rotate X just to give us a little more shape to that hand. Okay. The only thing is, I kind of wish we had another way to tweak this a little bit more. Just because I'd like to be able to lay it there a little bit. It was pretty close to where we wanted it before. Let's see if we can't make it a little bit stronger there. It feels a little better. Definitely tweak his hand pose a little bit more. Well, this might be one of those cases where we could do IK hand to really get it to lock in and plant down there, but I feel like that works pretty well. And let's tweak it down a little bit more. Pull it in a little bit more. We're going to have to readjust this hand pose, but I think it's a little bit stronger for the rest of the arm. Like that. Yeah, that feels okay. Again, the thumb's kind of distracting me with the way it's set up, but I like it. Let's go and just curl those fingers down a little bit more. And noodles as well. And we just kind of want to get that thumb in a better spot there. There we go. It feels a little better. Okay, let's go ahead and go with that. We'll go ahead and save our file again. Just Control S on the keyboard and save that. And like I said, it's always good to save multiple versions and to save often. And let's set our frame range from 0 to 48. And perhaps we should tilt the hips back just a little bit more. That's pretty good. We'll go ahead and grab everything, go to frame 0, and we'll set our first key. And let's start building that lock now. I think we're going to have low steps on this one because it's going to be kind of moody or mopey kind of a walk. So we're not going to drag the feet up too much. But we're not worried about the passing positions yet. We're just building in the foundation, which is going to be the foot plants and the hips, really. So let's see here. Step needs to be a little bit further. We're just kind of looking at the distance between the two steps, and we really want to get that little bit of spacing here. Okay, just kind of want to mimic the spacing that we have between those two, which is just a little bit. Pull it back a little more. We'll set that one and push it forward here. And grab our hips. Let's keep them going. And we'll definitely go back in and tweak this stuff, but we just want to lay down the foundation for where we're going to be here with this walk. And let's go ahead and move that forward. Okay, let's go ahead and just take a quick look at it and see if that feels about right. And the hips are slowing in and slowing out of that. So let's go into Window, Animation Editor's Graph Editor, look at the Translate Z. That's going to be the left to right movement on the hips, and let's make that pretty much a constant here. So that they're always moving at a fairly steady rate on those hips. And let's go ahead and look at that again. Let's go ahead and save our file, and let's see if we might give ourselves an extra couple of frames per step. And that's one of the reasons why you really want to build in, so let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8 more frames. 8 plus 8 would be, what, 56 frames then? I'm going to add 2 more frames to each one of these things. Okay, so we'll just go in between here, and grab our graph editor. Just middle mouse button, slide it over 2 frames. And go here, slide it over 2 frames. And 1, 2. Okay, and that's slowing everything down. We'll make this real slow. Just felt like it needed to be a little bit slower than we usually do. If you're sad or if you're kind of down, usually walk a little bit slower than you normally would. So just slow it down just a little bit. 2 frames, you're gonna feel it. Not necessarily gonna really tweak stuff too much, but you're definitely going to feel that there's going to be some variation. Okay, so let's go back in and lock down all the keys that we have really here, just so we don't lose anything. Let's go ahead and add those passing positions, and we're going to do that on 7 here. So, there we go. 35. And again, these steps might be a little bit higher than we end up going with as well, but we're just kind of laying them in here. Once again, we'll just go back in and rekey everything just to make sure that we're not going to lose anything as we go along. And we'll raise that up. And we'll raise that up. Okay. Yep, I think those steps are going to be too high for the feeling that we're going with. So let's go ahead and take a look at our graph editor here. And let's just scale everything back, and we're also going to even it out a little bit more. We're going to still drag the heel though, so we don't want to totally lower it down here. Okay. And let's get in here and add some drag here, so it's usually it's rotate X, but this one is probably rotate Z. Okay. And rotate Z. And get some nice drag. The labored steps, okay? And by not picking them up and really pronouncing them, we're making it so that they feel heavier, and they also feel like the character isn't putting a lot of effort into those steps either. Just kind of, I gotta move my foot forward, so I'll put the least amount of effort into it, kind of a feel. Okay, it's starting to work, so let's go ahead and save our file here, and let's do some work with the hips. First off, let's go ahead and put in our up and downs here. Down, up, and down. And we'll go ahead and clean these up in a second. Down, up, and down. Let's go ahead and look at that one. Just adds that little bit of weight there to it, so it feels like there's some lifting that's going to be going on those steps. Let's kind of clean up that as well. And we might be neutering this a little too much, so we might have to go back and re-amp up the up and down, but let's go ahead and look at it here. Yeah, we want to exaggerate that a little bit more, so I'll just do the up and down a little bit more. Maybe a little less up and a little more down. Okay, and let's go ahead and just save our file. And we can go ahead and do a little bit of side to side here. So I'll do a little bit of translate X to favor the planted foot there. And there as well. Even that out so we're not really favoring one side or the other. That's something you'd want to do if like they had an injured foot or a bad hip or something where you really favor one side versus the other. For something where it's pretty typical, you usually have a good balance between left and right swing on your hips. Okay, let's go ahead and add a little bit of rotate so that the hips are angling to favor the weight over the planted foot. And back zero that out. And let's go ahead again and clean that up so it's pretty balanced between the two sides. Let's go look at that now. We'll definitely do some rotation in the chest to offset that as well. And the last thing we're going to do with the hips right now is just rotate to favor the forward planted foot. Back. Okay, I feel like that's way over exaggerated, so let's scale it back to almost nothing, then it just feels like it's too much. And again, we're going to offset this stuff with the movement we do in the chest the best we can, since there's only one controller in the middle. So it's going to be, we'll see how much we have to scale this up and back as well. But for right now, that's the plan. We'll see how it works. And let's go and save our file here. We'll go back in there. Okay. Let's go to 7 here. And again, the rotate Z is different than the rotate Z in the hips, so I'm going to find what is our rotate Y is actually what our rotate Z would be in the hips. Sometimes the way they set up rigs is different, so you have to be wary that not everything is going to be a rotate Y throughout every rig that you use, or a rotate X or rotate Z, so you've got to be careful there. Okay, feels pretty good. Let's go ahead and clean that up. So we have a blend between rotate Y and rotate Z in the hips versus hips versus the chest. And let's go look at that. Okay, and let's do a little bit of, say it can be rotate X here to favor this arm. Nope, the other side here. I want the shoulder opposite the hip to be favored. So when one hip is favored forward, the opposite shoulder should be favored forward in the typical style walk. Okay, and that looks really janky, and that because our graph looks really janky, so what we want to do is go back up and clean that up as well. We never really balanced out to the other side from what we were doing, and I think we only want a little bit of this. We kind of muted it on the hips as well. Not completely, but definitely brought it down to a minimal amount, so let's make sure we go ahead and do that now. Added a little bit of swing to the hips there. Starting to feel it a little bit. Okay. And yeah, let's go and save what we have, and let's do a little bit of swing in the other arm here. Forward there, back there. This is probably too much, but we'll scale it. We'll see. Going back. So let's see here. Yeah, I think that's probably a little too much. So let's see here. Again, we're gonna throw animation into the form of the hand as well, so we kind of want the root of where the arm swing is going to be a lot smaller. Where if we were just animating this, it might work with having it kind of a little bit bigger. But if we're going to be doing animation and the rest of it, we want to keep that pretty neutral here. 21, bring it forward, and 35, bring it back. And like I mentioned a lot in animation, at least in the way that I work, it's really good to be able to know your times tables. So those of you who are younger kids who are watching this video, there's a reason to, I'm not saying you gotta know algebra and everything, but to know at least your multiplication tables and division tables is a good thing to know when you're doing 3D animation, I find. At least for laying the groundwork for where you might be going with a shot. It's always good to little too much before. Maybe we'll make this first. It's funky to have a second controller here instead of this one. You would think that it would be this controller, and this controller that would all move the arm instead of this. And this would be like a shoulder controller, but it's kind of different layout for arm movements, but that's okay. Just gotta get used to it. Just adding a little more swing to that first move so it doesn't feel like it's peeling back. Again, we just want a little bit of this. This is more of a minimalist type of a walk. But there's all different types, it's all different kind of personalities that you want to throw in the walk. And this one, we're just kind of going with a little bit more restrained. And a lot of times, people say doing restrained animation is a lot more difficult. Because doing something totally over the top, you can kind of get away with everything not being completely in arcs and everything, you know, not being as on point. That being said, when people do over the top animation like a Chuck Jones kind of stuff, and then everything is just clean through all that, I mean, that's super, super impressive. But getting the subtle nuances in animation where it's a lot more smaller, a lot more refined is pretty difficult too. So it's definitely something to work on. And you got to figure out what style, you know, fits with the way that you see the world and the way that you want to animate stuff too. So it's definitely, I know when I was first learning animation, a lot of people really liked the kind of the cloudy with the chance of meatballs, noodle kind of arms that was just that movie was probably one of the first ones to really use a 3D animation in that way, kind of getting that rubber hose style animation where you're really breaking stuff and getting some real fluidity in there. And that's definitely a stylistic choice, but it just depends on what you're going for and what you want to do with your shots and everything too. But I really like that stuff too. I don't know, I'm just a fan of really anything creative, as long as it's got, you know, some sense of like study behind it. A lot of people, I think, I don't know. I'm not gonna feel that way. There's a lot of artwork. I'll put this in it. Let me make sure I'm phrasing things correctly, because I don't like to say things that are ever could be construed as negative. I try to say positive things all the time. But some artwork I feel like isn't as refined as other pieces of artwork, and you can tell. But when there's a piece that seems simplistic, but you can tell there's a lot of skill and a lot of study and a lot of work behind it and a lot of just understanding of the concepts and bringing it down to their minimalist form, I think that is really strong. Other times where you can tell that it's just kind of like, I threw this on the wall. I don't know that I personally appreciate that kind of work as much. I hope that was a good way to say that. Overall, anything that people create, I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of the creative process if you haven't quite got that yet from watching these videos. But there's stuff that I personally am drawn more to, and that's stuff that you can tell is like a labor of love type of work. And everybody's on their journey at different times too. So just because that's where someone's at right now doesn't mean that that's where they're going to be at down the road. Let's go ahead and do the tip of the thumb here as well. We're just kind of dragging it back a little bit. Swing it down. Drag What's that much on? Should we not do anything on this? I guess not. Okay, well, let's definitely build that in then too. Just a little bit. Oh, because all there isn't any. Okay, well, that's alright. I thought there would be, there's just kind of grip on these, not really swing. The only swing is really on these units. So I usually like to break that up a little bit more, but that's okay. We'll just take everything that's on this first finger, forward frame, and everything that's on this last one. We'll delay the frame, and that'll have a little bit of variation there too. Okay, feels like that's pretty. Got a little bit of keep alive and everything in there. One thing we probably could do here is go into all of them here. Go in here and we'll just rotate. So you'll just grip it in a little bit and we'll let it back out, just so there's a little bit of change in there as well. Okay, let's go ahead and do some stuff with the toes, then we'll come into this other arm, and then we'll do the head after that. And I think we're getting pretty close to something that works pretty well. Let's see. Do we have individual toes? We do. Let's do individual toes then. So let's go ahead and plant them at 12. 12, 14. 14, and then 28. We'll go ahead and plant that again. Again, we're just kind of locking in the main keys where we want them to stay planted. And let's go to 21. We'll drag them back. We'll lift them up. Plant them. Drag them back. Lift them up. So let's look at that now. Okay, and then we're going to grab this guy. I'm going to push him forward a frame. I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to delay my frame. Okay, now this one feels like it whips up a little bit higher than I would want as it plants, so let's tone it down a little bit more. And kind of find a good balance between those two. I love it when you get a couple of toes to do a plant. I don't know, I just like the splaying of the feet there. Has that nice little amphibian-like quality. And again, we're just locking in those main keys to start off with. And then we'll go ahead and drag them down. Lift them up and plant them, and drag them down, and lift them up, and zero them out again. Okay, so let's go and look at that now. Okay, and we'll grab this guy, again, push it forward a frame, and grab this guy and we'll delete a frame here. Let's go and watch that now. Too much, again, up on the outer toe, so let's scale that back. Let's do some little head shakes on the head. I think that's what I want to do. Overall, maybe we'll dip it down a little more. We're going to also want to do the arm back a little bit more here. Maybe we'll kind of have a couple poses that we go between here. Let's go first. Just kind of adjusting on the hand here, just so it's not staying in that same pose. So there's a little bit of movement in there. I feel like this should probably be a little bit further down here. And we'll run into some intersection there, so we gotta be careful of that. And one other thing we might try, let's go and save our file here. And then I think we'll hold our first position here. And hold our second position there. So we kind of have some ease out and move and then ease into that last pose. Let's go and look at that one. And let's maybe do that with the neck as well. So we got first initial pose and hold that up for a little bit longer. And again, it's pretty much the same thing. We're just gonna have a little bit of holding to those poses. And we varied the timing a little bit. The hand moves a little bit before the head does. And that adds kind of like that weight of the hand would pull the head down a little bit more too. And then let's go and see our file. Let's see if we can get a couple of little head shakes in there as well. So last ones, we either need to minimize them or add an extra couple of frames there, so let's do both. Pretty well. We'll go ahead and save our file, and we'll see if we need to do a little bit of animation just so that we don't lock off on these fingers up here. Even though it's not really going to be seen probably from the camera angle we're working on, it's always good to create good habits in yourself so that you're animating everything. So in case it's a scene file where maybe you really animated to camera and it works really well, but then let's say your director wants to change the camera and you're like, well, I didn't animate the feet or the hips or anything because it was just an upper body shot, and now you wanted to scale out and only the top half's animated. If you get in there and you animate everything so it's working, then you probably still would have to do a couple of tweaks to make sure that it plays best to the new camera, but most of the work would already be done. So that's why you want to get in good habits of and you'll probably see this in some videos that I do where I'm like, okay, I spent a lot of work on this, but then I change a camera angle where you almost can't even see that. But it's just good to get in those habits of building that kind of a workflow where you're like, you know what, it's best to do the best job that I can do, animating everything and getting into every part that you can with the time given that you have to work on a shot as well. So I'm just going to do a little bit of keep alive in those fingers so that we can get something a little bit better. In and those out a little bit more. And take those in a little bit. Okay, not this one. We still want to make sure that we're not like intersecting stuff. And maybe this one could rotate inward a little bit there too. Okay. I feel like we've got fairly good move from one hand pose to the next. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to grab all of these guys. And again, go a few frames forward and hold that, and then we'll extend that out to like frame. So let's go to 17. So I think we'll go to 18. It's good to always mix up your timing a little bit so everything doesn't stay the same. And we'll grab what we have at like frame 51, and we'll hold that out at like 41. So this is going to be where the big move happens, and these are just kind of holds and eases into the next move. And then the next thing that we can do to mix that up a little bit is grab the mids and the tips of the fingers, and we can delay those a frame. And again, adjust on the tips, delay that a frame, and then we can grab everything on the index. And I usually like to lead with that, so we'll push it forward a frame. And then we have the pinky, and we'll delay that a frame as well. That'll add a lot. Now, if we grabbed all of those controllers where we originally only had, what, maybe 3 keys? 4 keys, right? Yeah, so far. Now by mixing it up, here we have, a bunch more keys. And again, you could really get in there and do everything on 1s and 2s, but I think that's really necessary for what we're doing here. I feel like that finger could maybe be dragged down. Let's look at the thumb here. Let's do a little bit of movement on the thumb as well. And we'll go ahead and probably have a 7, we'll go to like 24. And probably have 153, we'll go to 44. Just so it's on a little bit different timing there. So let's go ahead and watch that and see if that thumb still works okay. Yeah, it's alright. Like I said, there's just a little bit more keep alive under that main movement we already have. Okay. I feel like that works pretty well. Maybe we'll do a little more angled up kind of a shot. And then let's go ahead and grab our base here and let's scale that a little bit longer just so it stretches all the way out. And let's save our file one more time. Let's go off and create a new camera. And then panels, perspective, we'll look through camera 1, we'll zoom it out here. And then let's go ahead and create another polygon primitives cube. Just go ahead, I'm sick of looking at this kind of bluish, boring background. Let's see if we can give it a different color here. Scale that over, scale that up. Perspective, we'll look back through our perspective cam, which is what we like to begin with. And let's grab this and scale it in X so it extends a little bit more. And let's go ahead and assign, I'm just going to right click on that other cube and assign a new material here. Let's go ahead and put a blend on it. They're a little bit shinier. And let's just give it a real bright color there. Just so it's something a little bit different than what we had. And again, we're going to look through our perspective. And Control A, go back to where we had it. Turn our curves off. And select everything. And let's go and look at that now. I really like those toes. I think that's my favorite part. I just like the way those look. Okay, so let's go ahead and look back at where we started today when we were looking at Chester Gould. When you combine realism with the fantastic, you've got a story every time. And we kind of did that right here. We added some realistic kind of body movements and kind of mimic how, a normal kind of sad or depressed or down person might walk, and we added that into this kind of fantastical robot creature, and then it gave us something different than we would probably, we would have had if we just did completely like a robotic animation for this shot. So it's kind of that blending of the two and trying to find something familiar that other people could resonate with or feel like they have a connection to, or at least have had someone in their life that they might know that with or assign that to. If you can link other people's thoughts and ideas and memories and everything with your own sort of creative vibe. That's kind of where the sweet spot is. So that being said, thanks again for watching, everyone. Thanks for all the likes and subscribes. I hope you guys are enjoying this series and at least getting inspired to go off and create your own stuff. If you do end up using this rig for an animation that you create, definitely share it back so we can see all the amazing stuff you come up with, because I would love to see that. And that being said, you guys keep being awesome, keep working towards your goals every day, and we will see you for some more animation tomorrow.